So my talk is about not implementing custom AEM components for edge delivery services. To set context, so it's about edge delivery service with AEM authoring as content source. And as we are all, or most of you, or all of you are really seasoned AEM developers, of course, you will have the wish to do what you do every day. If you use AEM authoring for edge delivery service, you want to implement your custom components to do all the cool stuff. But there are some things to consider, or some things which will not work or are not supposed to work. So just a recap to some additions to the talk from Monday. If you're using AEM authoring for edge delivery services, codename Crosswalk, if you come about this, you will basically have a set of built-in components, built in already into AEM, and which are used by default if you're creating edge delivery service website, for example, using this wizard we've seen on Monday. These are not all. These are maybe the important ones. There are a couple more. But the first one is, for example, the page component. So each page you create will be based on this page component. There's a lot of stuff in it which generates the metadata in the HTML page and so on, and where the Sitely scripts, main Sitely scripts are located. And then we have, for example, image, title, text component, which are just the basic default content components for the default stuff you add to your page. And everything else you are doing when you are defining your custom blocks, as we have seen on Monday, like your custom teaser component or everything else, will be mapped, and you define your JSON model definitions, as we have seen. This will be mapped to a single, just a quite generic block component in AEM. So all those components are in AEM. They are just Sling components, although they are not using Sling models. They are using a bit older version of code, Java code behind the page, but they're all in AEM. So this is nice and using Sling. I will not go into details here. This is again an example. I think the fourth or fifth time that our old stage teaser here is re-implemented somehow. So the important thing is only there on the left side, you see the red marked thing. This is a custom component, and this is mapped in the component definition to this component block, this generic component. And the right side is only definition of the model with the fields you can edit and so on. There are some limitations by design if you're using Crosswalk, if you're using AEM authoring for EDS. So the AEM components which are provided to you by built-in are completely generic. So they are built in a way that they adapt themselves using these JSON definitions you provide from the GitHub repository and automatically build the edit dialogues in the site thing for you and automatically generate the correct markup, which is expected by Helix and which fits nicely into all the EDS scenario. And all this mimics the minimalistic approach of document-based authoring. So you can do exactly the same thing as in Google Docs or in SharePoint Office, for example, using default content, using tables of properties, which then you can put to some use and layout later and CSS and your JavaScript. And you have a very limited support for nesting components. So you can stuff like this cards component, having one component with cards in it, or an image carousel, for example. So this is possible, as it is also in document-based authoring. But besides this, it's very limited. Mainly, you have absolutely no custom server-side logic. Of course, these built-in components have a lot of generic server-side logic, but you as developer, you're not writing any custom server-side logic. The Franklin AEM components are not extensible. Sling would allow it, but these components do not allow it. They are just not designed in a way to be extensible. And so all custom logic which you are implementing in this case is really going to the client. And on the server side, you have just the JSON models and the model definitions. This sounds, of course, for us AEM developers who have implemented the hell out of AEM and Sling, like very limiting. In a way it is, but it just forces you also to rethink how you implement stuff. And there's also one reason why it makes sense to put a lot of limitations to this, because we already briefly touched this in the panel discussion as well. There's a different way how caching works in AEM traditionally and in edge delivery services with or without AEM. Traditionally, you render full pages in AEM. Pages have a couple of components, for example, navigation components, and each page you render from Sling, from AEM, and is cached at the end, has a lot of references, includes to other pages. For example, each page has the navigation component, and this is based on the hierarchy of other pages and gets the titles of other pages and so on. So if you want to flush your CDN because you publish a new page, you know it, you basically flush the whole site CDN or have to wait until the time to live is expiring. So there's really no intelligence in flushing only one page because it really does not simply work. In edge delivery services, caching and pushing to the edge is working differently. So each page you publish in AEM authoring or in a Google document drive, for example, is pushed individually to Helix, to the CDN level, and only invalidates this one HTML fragment, this one markup fragment you are pushing there. This is, of course, very efficient, but this also means each HTML fragment you are pushing has to be independently. It must not contain any references to any other pages or including content from them. So all those includes what you want to do, like navigation component and fragments, including reusable content, is again be done on the client side. And this is also the case that a lot of components which you just would implement on the server side with iterating over the content hierarchy, including content from other pages and so on, will just not work the same in edge delivery services because the implementation will just break and not work as you expected. So, yeah, can you do custom AEM components for edge delivery services? Well, don't try this at home or in your projects. It's definitely discouraged by Adobe, but technically it's possible, currently at least. But as it's not supported, it may break every time. But I will just show you how it could work. So I have a very simple use case, an image gallery. And this image gallery, without thinking about a good solution, just using the boilerplate would look like this. You have a gallery component, and then you can add child components for each image you add one. And now create an image with 200 gallery with 200 images. You go there, click on add a component, click on browse your component, click on save, click on add, browse, save, add, browse, and this 200 times. Of course, this is not really usable. So my first idea when playing around with this, without thinking much about it, was, okay, I want a nicer solution. I just want a custom component where I specify an asset folder path, and all this is done automatically with all images in my asset folder. And this works, and it's really easy. So here's the Sling model behind it. Just looking on, okay. Here quickly on the code. So it's just really simple Java code, getting the asset folder path and then just iterating over it and generating a list of assets and URLs to be usable on the in the final markup. And then there's a very simple Sightly file, HTML file, which just takes this list, iterates over it, and adds, if you've seen this on Monday as well, about the Universal Editor talk, adds some instrumentation for the Universal Editor. So basically, we are doing the same which this generic block would be doing, just hard-coded for our one single component here. And this works. And in this case, it's not a caching problem because this is completely standalone. Of course, if you add a new image, it's not automatically updated, and you have to publish this this page again, including this. But it works. So in theory, it would be nice to do custom components. In practice, it's really discouraged by Adobe and should not be done easily. So what's the result of this? First, think twice or thrice how to map your use case to EDS concepts. Because in most cases, there's a better, more modern, and more suitable way. And often you find a good solution on the client side, but maybe it's a different one than using from AEM. And if you're still convinced that you really need custom components, before doing it, come to the Discord server, discuss with the community. There are a lot of Adobe engineers there, and see how others solve this problem. And maybe you find a solution, Or maybe we find use cases where we need custom components, and then we can discuss with Adobe if there are ways for it. But let's see. For me, it's also too new. Up to now, we could solve all our problems without custom components, and I also do not recommend to do it lightly, but technically, it's not so far from being possible. Yeah, thank you. This was my lightning talk.